Rock 30, Bill and Jay's excellent podcast, with your hosts, Billy Quinton and Jay Odom. Our special guest this evening is Congressman Pat Fallon. Let's roll.
All right. If anybody has any hearing left, it's exciting to have Congressman Fallon joining us as Sea-Dog. I'm old and my hearing's going, and that still rocked me. I mean, that was loud.
That's right.
And I asked Caden to turn it down, and I think it went up. I'm pretty sure.
It got loud.
I turned it the wrong way. I apologize.
It went pretty loud.
Down is lower.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, but does that keyboard go to 11?
Exactly. We are excited to have our U.S. Representative from District 4, Pat Fallon, joining us.
Yes.
And I want to get right to the issues here, Congressman. You took over for John Ratcliffe.
Yeah, great American.
Great American. We've had him on the show. He's been great. He told us some top secrets that we just kept among ourselves.
It was interesting hearing who the final story on Kennedy.
Yeah, I love that he opened up and told us who killed Kennedy. And so
and
anyway,
I've only told 3 or 4 people.
But you had John Ratcliffe was before you, who graduated from Notre Dame. Then you take over, also a graduate of Notre Dame. So I'm worried, do you have to be a Fighting Irish alum to represent our district from here on out?
Funny that you mentioned that. For instance, in Texas, when I was running for the state Senate against the 17-year sitting incumbent in the Republican primary, we polled a series of things, and they'll ask you, are you more likely than not to vote for Fallon if you knew he was X, like a veteran, more likely, et cetera. And the only thing that was underwater was, would you be more or less likely to vote for Fallon if you knew that he was a graduate of Notre Dame? We were underwater by 22 points.
Really?
Never mentioned it after that.
That is funny.
Still don't mention it now.
Well, it's out there now. We've got it out there now. I just think it's fascinating that John, and now you, and then our previous guest, who are the owners of Zanata, the restaurant, they are big Notre Dame guys.
Yes,
and so it's been Notre Dame.
And all Catholics.
Jay's wearing a green hat.
I think the previous guests need to meet me. I need to meet them, and they could be a little donor.
Exactly.
That's how it works.
That's how it works. That's how it works. But thank you so much for joining us. I know it's a pain to kind of get out here and make it to the shack. I'm sure when you pulled up and saw the little red building, it's like, what have I got myself into?
I have to tell the story. He called me and he's like, is this residential? It's like, yeah, I failed to mention that to your staff. I kind of left that out. So.
It's a little different than like when I go on Fox News in Manhattan.
Is this different than Manhattan?
Slightly.
Okay.
But you know what? Microphones work. And,
everything.
Internet
We got
works.
a nice scene behind you.
Yeah.
And
this
so,
is just real and authentic,
The
baby.
Rockwall Square is right behind it.
Yeah. See, we got that rolling.
Hey, and we're in the free state of Texas.
There you go.
That's right.
There you go. And
You know what that area is?
Liberty. That's right. I love it. We will be moving to a larger studio pretty soon.
We are.
Because Jay's
We're
working
expanding.
on that. Yeah, we're
Nice.
expanding.
Nice.
So we might just get
Although we like our little cove here.
Well.
And you can't escape. So
Exactly. You can't leave. So
I'm here for the duration.
yes.
So we've just kind of, just going through your history here, and so you've had quite a career. You started a little bit late though in politics.
Yeah, I didn't run until I think I was 41 when I ran for city council.
Is that considered?
Yeah, probably
Older.
middle into late.
So you started city council, Frisco.
Yep.
Mayor pro tem.
Yep.
And then and you just kept kind of climbing. You were Texas House of Representative, 106th district, from January 8th of 13th through 8th
The 6 years in the House. Yeah.
And then on to Texas Senate, where there's just 2 of you there, right?
No, in the Texas Senate, there's 31.
31.
Texas
31,
senators.
I'm
You're
thinking-
taking a U.S.
okay.
Senate.
And that
Yeah.
was
That's right.
the Texas Senate was amazing.
So
Dan
that
Patrick
took you to-
running it. It was a
Yeah.
good show. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That took you to through January 3rd, 2021, a few days before the January 6th.
Yep.
Right into where you are now, U.S. House of Representative, Texas 4th District.
Congressman Fallon, hello and welcome to Rockwall. As the mayor of the largest city in your congressional district, we're happy to have you again. I wanted to send this message that was obviously completely pre-planned and absolutely up to the high production quality standards we've come to expect from Jay Odom. Glad to have you on the show and look forward to seeing you soon, sir.
Okay, first of all,
salute the Marine.
There you go.
Sir, yes, sir.
How much are we paying our mayor? He's in the Bahamas right now. What is their salary? What is that salary? What's going on?
Is that his balcony off his personal?
I don't know. It's a second home. I don't know what's going on.
Pink flamingo.
Right.
And
Listen, if
Captain
this
America's shirt looks like he's got on.
if this is 2 a.m. and he's saying I can get into the real estate business without any money down, that's the look right
That's
there.
the look. Yeah. That is so funny.
Now, I might want to tell our mayor, Mayor Trace, that Plano and Frisco are in our district, which are a little larger.
Yeah, that's what I was
Just
wondering.
saying.
Yeah.
But I love me some Rockwall.
Yeah. 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 Okay, let's start. We're talking about cities and all that stuff. Where you started. You're originally from Massachusetts, from Pittsfield,
I got the hell out of
Massachusetts.
there as fast as I
Okay.
could.
You don't sound like a Massachusetts
No,
guy.
Fuck you, car.
Have you lost it?
Yeah. And I worked hard on the R's.
Oh, good.
And now it's just natural. There's a few words that people listen and go, what? I don't say the day before today. I say that funny.
Thursday?
No. Like,
Oh, wait. Oh, for Friday? Or which one? Because it's confusing when we post it, then when we film it.
no,
Oh.
yesterday.
Yesterday. Oh,
Yesterday.
yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Yesterday.
yesterday.
Yeah, there you go.
You got to drop
Yeah.
the voice.
There you go. There
How
you go.
far from Boston?
It's 2 hours west. Yeah, right by on the New York border. In fact, we had the last, because we were rural, we had the last Republican congressman from Massachusetts, Silvio Conte. He died in office. He was from Pittsfield. And then when I won in 2020, I called a couple of his kids who are older than I am. And just to let them know that Pittsfield, Mass. has a seat back in the chamber, and it was a nice moment.
Nice.
to call them.
Okay, so you go to high school at Pittsfield High School. You are the Generals.
Yes,
right?
the Generals.
The Generals. Was it always the Generals? That seems like one of those mascots that we were the Indians. Now we're going to change it.
No, we actually were. Yeah, they were PC before it was PC.
Oh yeah. Okay. Tell me the famous. Other than you, I found two famous alums from Pittsfield High School. Do you know?
I know one for sure is Tom Greaves.
There you go.
Yeah,
There's one.
He 20 years before I was there. Great baseball player, and of course he did color for the Rangers.
GM for the Rangers. Yeah.
Now I'm very proud of this fact. Pittsfield, Massachusetts, a working class town. I grew up in a home that my parents bought for $13,000. Just recently sold for $75,000. So
Nice.
very working class, but they focused on education. And all three of their children, me and my two sisters, got degrees, and live good lives. Because we live in the greatest country history ever known. But I'm very proud of Pittsfield, Massachusetts. Currently had retired Rear Admiral Kevin Jones.
Yes.
We have now 3-star Admiral Rob Goucher, who's up in the ranks, and we also have 1-star General. She might be 2-star now. Janine Cohn in the Air Force.
Okay.
All from our own class.
That's
I
great.
mean, Rob Goucher was our center on our high school football team,
That is so
and I
great.
think he's going to end up being a 4-star, and he might
All right.
see.
I love
command
that.
on
That
it.
ain't coming from my high school. We ain't got people like that quality.
Don't either.
You know,
Not at Old Garland High School.
No.
Isn't that something though?
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah.
So there's one other.
There's one other. Yeah, she's 6 years younger than me. Her real name is Elizabeth Mitchell.
There
You know her as Elizabeth Banks.
Yeah, the actress.
So nobody has ever gotten all
No,
the famous.
most people don't get it. You nailed it.
you're-
With
And there was-
her, she's by far the most famous of anybody from Pittsfield High. But I remember her as Elizabeth Mitchell. She was 6 years younger than me. So she was a scrawny little skinny girl. And the Mitchell family, Patrick Mitchell, I believe, is her cousin. I knew those folks. So she was a nice little kid. But,
Right.
when you're 12 and you've got a 6-year-old, you don't really pay her much mind.
Right.
And then I remember she got her first break. It was in the horse movie. No, not Secretariat. What was the other one? What was- what I'm talking-
Biscuit, Seabiscuit.
yeah, I think
Okay.
she was in CB. I think that was her first big break, and they said the drama department at Pittsfield High is so proud of Elizabeth.
Okay,
yeah.
Oh yeah, she's done a lot.
And then she was in, I think one of her other early movies was Catch Me If You Can. She's like a bank teller in it that Leonardo DiCaprio kind of hooks up with.
Yes.
And then finally, he's the one that says, "I'm going to take you to a steak dinner." She's that one. And then she's this will be in Caden's category, Hunger Games. She's
I was never a Hunger Games fan.
Oh, you're not?
I'm gonna be honest, and I get a lot of flack for that. but
you probably should.
I'm more of a Star Wars guy.
Okay, good.
She's
That's
been
fine.
in everything, and she gets in with all those comedy guys, Seth Rogen and that.
Yes, exactly. She's been in those. Yeah. And then one other that I'm a baseball
I haven't seen
fan.
her since she's gotten famous. By the way, she won't remember me.
And I'm pretty sure the political.
Politically,
yeah.
if she can get over that, a quick story about that. I go to my high school reunion. I think it was the 25th. I was a state rep at the time. And this gal, just say her first name, Lauren, comes up to me. I haven't seen her in 20 years. And we were pretty good friends in high school. And she starts ripping into me about politics.
Yeah.
She obviously left leader. And I just stopped her. I said, Lauren, we shall not sacrifice friendship on the altar of politics. And to her credit, she took a step back and she said, "You know what? You're right, Pat. How are you?"
So
and we had a great night the rest of the night.
That's
but
good.
I find something interesting. A very typical high school in America in the 1980s. And all of the kids, literally every one of them that went to the Ivy Leagues, are liberals.
Yeah.
And the ones that work with their hands and are skilled laborers, those were the ones that were coming up to me at the reunions going, "I love what you're doing."
Right.
And I said, "What are you up to now?" "I'm a plumber." Because they're making a good living, north of $100,000. Sometimes even more than that. Some that own their own businesses and are multimillionaires now because they knew what it took and they never got the brainwash.
Don't you think it's wild that the liberal or Democratic Party has gone from, quote unquote, the blue collar, they were always for the working man, they would say, to now it's way more elitist. Many of them are in the Ivy Leagues and all that stuff, and now they're the ones now wanting to do censorship and all these things, which is so off the left brand.
And they're so proud of themselves.
Right. And they want to.
Well, they go like the. Don't you know? I can't believe it. Why do you hate women and children? And it's just so lazy. You know, a shocking statistic I read yesterday was in the recent polling. Obviously, President Trump's slightly ahead, but with white college-educated women, he's down 28 points to Biden.
Right.
That's
That
remarkable.
shocks me.
Yeah.
That shocks me.
But his numbers are up with minorities, right?
With
They're
blacks and
skyrocketing.
Hispanics,
Yeah.
they just come to him in droves. When there was something very interesting, and it was a trend that nobody was talking about back in 2018. The Republicans had a very bad cycle. It was the midterm of President Trump in Texas. We lost 12 state house seats, and we were in a panic, right? And remember, Ted Cruz only won by 2.6 points.
That's
over
right.
Beto O'Rourke.
That's
Now,
right.
Beto O'Rourke, to his credit, can skateboard in a parking lot.
Right.
And he can play the air drums in a drive-thru, which are two great qualifications for being a United States senator. But it was scary. Anyway, there was a chart that Dan Patrick showed us, who was the lieutenant governor. And it wasn't blue and red so much as like if the Democrats got all the votes and if they won 70-30, it was the trends. So in other words, you could have lost a county 70-30, but if it was 80-20 in the last cycle, it would be red because the trends were it's trending red. Right?
Yeah, right.
And then so when you did that and you mapped it in Texas, the suburbs were all light blue because they were still being won by Republicans, but they were trending the other way. Along the border was ruby red.
Yes.
It was trending Republican. And then you see President Trump losing some counties on the border by 30% to Hillary Clinton in 2016, that he then either was tied or won in 2020.
Right.
That trend has continued, and we saw Maya Flores being elected, first Mexican-born member of Congress ever, was a Republican. Monica De La Cruz, one of my dear friends, she was serving with us now from the 15th District of Texas. I say to her, the lady so fine, they named her 4 times. Thrice. Monica De La Cruz. All right, I'm going to tell you a funny story that no one knows. It's exclusive.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Good. We'll keep it between us.
So Monica comes up in a certain door on the House floor and she votes. And so I saw her, and when that happens, I put my arm around her and I say, "Monica, hola, se llama Alejandro Caballero Barcelona, mucho gusto, mujer." Which is, hi, my name is, because that's the coolest name ever.
Yeah, it is.
Alejandro Caballero Barcelona. You're bragging just by answering that question.
You're getting a chick right there. Yeah, with that name.
And then I say, "Nice to meet you, lady." And she always laughs and we giggle and then we talk about, day's events. So I go ahead and I do this. I see her and I put my arm around her and I start, "Hola, se llama Alejandro." And I look and it was AOC. I thought it was Monica from the back.
What did she do?
I freaked out. Like I went like this. I don't talk to, and I went like this. And oh my God, I'm so sorry. I thought,
What did she do?
Yeah, what did she do?
To her credit, she was like, I thought you were Monica De La Cruz. I do this thing with her. And she was like, oh, okay. She let it roll off her duck feathers. But then I told a few other, and then I jokingly, as she was leaving, I said, "Hey, take it from me, Troy Nels," which is a congressman from Fort Bend, just to joke around. And that was it. Because I don't speak to her because we're just so politically divided.
Right.
We're just so on opposite ends because I don't think the rhetoric she uses in public is healthy at all.
No.
But to her credit, on that little anecdote, she was fine. But they were like, she's going to get on Facebook and she's going to get on social media and say she was accosted by a cisgender white straight male and all that.
But you probably were a little concerned that was going to happen.
If she did, then fine. But she didn't.
But I really thought it was
Monica.
That's
so
funny.
from now on, We're going to have triple confirmation on that.
Just got to check it out.
Wow.
Speaking of that, you talk about AOC getting on. Our politics right now is probably the most decisive or the most divisive.
Yeah.
I would say I wasn't around at other eras, but I know it was pretty divisive back in the '60s with the Vietnam War and stuff. But I would say even now it's even more. I would assume.
What's the internet?
Yeah, the internet and the social media and all that stuff. What are your thoughts there, and how can we get back to where we're
some
cordial?
civility?
Yeah.
I do think if you read pamphlets, I'm an amateur historian from some of the elections like in 1800. It was rough. I mean, Aaron Burr shot and killed Alexander Hamilton.
Right.
So it was worse at some times. But to your point, over the last 60 years, it seemed to have been far more cordial and better in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. So when I get into a chamber, I always like to talk to the folks that have been here a very long time because I want to get a little bit more institutional knowledge. Like in the Texas House, I started there in 2013, but I wanted to know what it was like in 2000. What was it like in 1980? And there's always a few members that have served way back, right? So Tom Craddock had been serving since the late 1960s. And so I did the same thing in the U.S. Congress, and I talked to some folks that had been there. Don Young, he just passed away, Alaska, he'd been there since 1972, like the Nixon administration. And I asked him, what was it like in the 70s and 80s? And there's another fellow still serving named Chris Smith, who is a Republican from New Jersey, been there since 1981. And other people, et cetera. And they said to a person that it was far better, and it really started to fall off the rails. Obama, Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah.
And then when President Trump won, it just got more and more divisive. But think about Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill would have dinner together.
I always mention that. Yeah. After they would go hang out together, even though they were politically opposite of each other. And that's the thing that my son's very involved in politics. He loves it. And I talk about that all the time. I was like, there was a time that you could disagree politically, but still hang out and still not call the other person a racist or a fascist or whatever you're doing. You could just say we're disagreeing, and so
that's the laziest of all rhetoric, too. By the way,
it is,
and it just happened. So I serve on two committees: the Armed Services Committee and the Oversight Committee, which are literally one of the most bipartisan. And we still have our fights when we say that, but the Armed Services Committee is very, at least, civil. But the Oversight Committee is a knife fight. You're stabbing eyeballs, okay? And you got Marjorie Taylor Greene, AOC, Ariana Presley, squad member. I think Tlaib is on there, squad member.
So wait, AOC and Marjorie Taylor Greene are on the Oversight Committee.
Yes.
They're both on it.
Yes.
Oh, my gosh. Just those two right there. That's an
and they get into
explosion.
it. And then there's that gal, Jasmine Crockett from Dallas, and she is just a peach as far as what they say in the South. Bless her heart.
Bless her heart, yeah.
And we'll just leave it there.
Yeah.
But she's going to die in office. Like she's young now. She's in her early 40s. 50 years from now, she's going to still be have that seat. And it's tough.
I want to ask you about Marjorie Taylor Greene. And let's start a little snippet.
MTG.
MTG, yeah. Let's start with it.
Was it for him? It's not about him. It's not about me. I'd be a winner. Not really. Lincoln Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right. But how many of thousands of people being killed by illegals? To her parents, I say, my heart goes out to you, having lost children myself.
So I want to know, from your point of view, sitting right there, tell us what was going on.
What happened there was me and Marjorie are very close to the rail where the president actually walks in, okay? And all the Democrats are fawning over him. I don't want to I don't want to be in the same frame as the guy.
Right.
But I had a button that said, "Stop the Biden border crisis." And he's walking in, and I catch his eye, and he looks at me, and I show him the button, and I say, "Would you like one?" And this is literally what he did. "Would you like one?" Normally you go, "No," or "Yes." He went, looked at me, looked at the button, then looked back at me, and said, "No." Okay. Marjorie then gives him and it's not Lincoln, it's Lakin Riley.
Right.
Gave him the button, the poor gal that got murdered in Georgia.
Yeah, in Georgia.
And he took it.
She put it like in his hand.
Yeah, and he took it because he's not all there. And we can get to that too in a little bit. But anyway, so he takes it up there and then she heckles him and he mentions the name, gets her name wrong. Marjorie got a text from Laken Riley's father and said he can't even say her name right.
Right.
And then he said illegal, which the guy was. And then the left freaks out. You can't call him.
That's right.
Illegal. I know he's illegally here, but he's a migrant. Now he's an asylum seeker. It went from alien to illegal. To remember this one? Undocumented worker.
Yep. Undocumented.
Everybody was an undocumented worker, whether they worked or not.
Right.
And now they're all asylum seekers.
Asylum seekers.
If you're an asylum seeker, even according to the UN's definition, and you're, let's say, from Colombia or Venezuela, you don't leave and transit through 7 or 8 other countries. By definition, you transit to the next safe country and you declare, I want asylum. This is a joke and this is a game about they're economic migrants, most of them looking for a better life, some of them criminal. And it's horrible. Yeah, it's right.
I think this is the snippet where he's looking at you like he's crazy. This is
look at those eyeballs.
Play this.
Look at that.
Is this a video?
Yeah.
You've got
See,
the
they got the button.
Right. I want to go there.
Please.
So us as on this end, we see 20-second segments. You don't know what's real. You've been around the man for stretches of time.
Lights on, nobody's home, and I'm not saying that because
opinion.
we're here and we're talking to a large audience. I asked Chris Smith, who I just mentioned previous, the fellow that had been in Congress since 1981. He's from New Jersey. Delaware's real close to New Jersey, and he was personal friends with Joe Biden. And in the 80s, very different Joe Biden when he was in his 40s then. And I asked him, just me and him on the House floor one day when we're having loads of votes, I said, Chris, I got to ask you because you know the guy better than me. I don't know. Is there a difference? And he said, Pat, it's night and day. You don't even recognize the guy. He's just not, he didn't have that. So that's all real.
Yeah.
It's not made up. And now you've got to understand the motivations here. It's not just Joe Biden. It's not just Jill Biden because she loves herself. Dr. Jill.
Right.
Being the first lady. It's all those people, that power apparatus around them that are bureaucrats and political appointees that without him go back to hack world because so many of the folks that are Democrats in Congress, they're never going to make $174,000 in the private sector. I mean, this was a pay bump for them. For most conservatives, Republicans, this was a massive pay cut for me, as it is for most folks. But you do it because
you got to become mayor of Rockwall. You get to go to the Bahamas and do whatever you want. So
hey, I don't want to brag, but when I was on Frisco City Council Mayor Pro Tem, I got $50 off my water bill.
There you go. See, there you go.
But in all seriousness, this country, this is how I view it. This country gave me, they paid for my college, Air Force ROTC scholarship. Then they gave me my first job. I owe the ledger is and protections, freedom, liberty, opportunity, prosperity. I was protected my entire life. There wasn't some thugs in like in Somalia, these roving gangs that are going to steal your food and your clothing and rape your mom or your sisters and put you into. There's slavery that still exists in this world, quite frankly, in this country as well. So you give back, and I always wanted to make a nickel. Didn't have any money. I've been rich and I've been poor. Prefer being rich, and that's all relative too. Elon Musk is really rich.
Right.
I think I'm a little bit more on the comfortable side, but be that as it may, and I got an entrepreneurial career off the ground. In that time in my 40s, I had the 2 children. I'd been married for a little bit. Now it was time to give back. In whatever capacity that was, it wasn't going to be up to me. It would be up to the voters. But you need to find your best and highest use. And I don't know anybody that has got a tombstone that says he had a big car, or a big house, or a fast car, or she had loads of money. It's always about who you loved and how you gave. And that's because that's the life's journey. It's about knowledge, and it's about making your community or your country a better place.
Yeah.
And that's why you should serve. And there are a lot of very good people in Congress. We always get knocked around because collectively it's so broken and it's very difficult to fix with the deficit spending and the wide open border and et cetera. But there's a lot of committed, talented people that are there to serve for the right reasons. Now, there's a lot of hacks that are out there just for me. I want to get the attention. And you can sort through that rather quickly. Some of the folks that are the most famous members of Congress are the ones that are looking just to be celebrities.
So would you, as you say this about Biden, and I kind of go back to, I love history stuff too, and I know that like Woodrow Wilson at one point had the stroke, and basically his wife was running the country, from what we understand. And then there's the rumor about Reagan near the end of his deal, and that there was. So, but would you, if this was Trump that was still in office and was walking around like Biden and wandering off into fields,
the press would be all over 25th Amendment, we got to get rid of him, etc. And
wouldn't you go on the same side and say, listen, man, I love the guy, but we got to get somebody else if Trump was doing all that stuff?
If someone's not qualified to do the job, this is the United States of America. It's 350 million people. Right. Not only that, then there's billions of others that count on a strong America to provide that Pax Americana, quite frankly. And if it's not going to be us, it's going to be China. It's just a very different world than it was 30, 40 years ago. The Soviets never had that economic engine that the Chinese communists do in Beijing. That's why they're so much more dangerous. And they're very ambitious, and they play a long game. So it's a vital import. And if this job, like they always say, the best U.S. senators are the ones that never want to be president.
Right.
The best members of Congress are the ones that don't want to be senators.
Right.
And people often ask politicians, I'm sure they ask Trace, myself, and others, hey, what's next? What are you going to do next? And since I started, and I'm somebody that, has climbed the ladder a little bit, you focus on the job you're doing at present. That may be the last job you ever have, and it's a great honor. And that's it. And this may be the last stop. I don't know. It's about timing. It's about opportunity. But if you're not doing a great job at your current occupation, no one's going to care about you bumping up anyway.
Yeah. Okay, you mentioned China. Do you want to go there?
Or as President Trump would say, China.
Well, kind of to your point, this is always something I think about politicians, is while you are working on doing your job as well as you can, you have to think about the perception of yourself for an election that's coming up.
Yeah, you got to be reelected.
You can't truly be free, I would imagine.
Yeah,
truly, right?
You know what? I've gotten to a stage in my life where, and particularly with this job, now that I've been doing it for 3.5 years, kind of more what I call slinging it, and just be yourself. You can be a little less careful. People want authenticity. That's what we're all starving for. You don't need the slick, like Bill Clinton, I care about you. And you knew it was just a political thing for him. He just wanted power and he wanted fame and he got a lot of money. Yeah. And the Clintons wanted to bite from both sides of the apple. They wanted to say, they make $35,000 a year as governor of Arkansas. Now, he never mentioned he had an $800,000 expense account that was not taxed, of course, and all the money that Hillary was making on the side in the Rose Law Firm, right? But then they went on the greed tour after he became president. And granted, Republicans have done it too.
Yeah, all ex-presidents allowed to do that.
Okay,
yeah.
And then they wanted her to serve,
right?
And they wanted to say, no, we're for the little guy. Meanwhile, they're worth $100, $200 million bucks. You are grabbing with both hands, stuffing pockets. The Obamas have done it as well, because these leftists, think about in the last 60 years. What Democrat had a business? Jimmy Carter was the peanut farmer that he inherited from his family.
Yes.
Okay, that's Jimmy. What about who was the next one after Jimmy? Bill?
Next Democrat.
What the hell Bill do?
Office. Yeah.
He was a hack.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What did Biden do? He's a hack. What did Obama do? He was a hack. They were just activists. They never made any real money. They never signed the fronts of paychecks. And when they talk about they're going to fix the economy, I want somebody that has actually hired people.
When Obama was running, remember, that was the big thing. He's a community organizer. That was the big push on him and all that. That was, what does he do? Well, he's a community organizer. And then they would actually literally compare him to Jesus. Well, Jesus was a community, no, Jesus is a little bit more than a community organizer, But no, and I think that's what comes into play. But you mentioned China, and this is where we can get Sea-Dog involved here.
Sea Dog action.
Yeah.
Well, I had a question.
Yes, sir.
And when you really look at the big picture, it's not a lot, but it's still concerning, I feel like. What do you think of China buying U.S. land? Now, it's only 1%, but that 1% is 384,000 acres. Not only, correct me if I'm wrong, most of that land is next to military bases.
Yeah, isn't that a coincidence?
Exactly.
That's what Biden would say. I think that we should have reciprocity in so much as we should have the same rules and laws that govern Chinese nationals buying American land as they do for us. Americans are not allowed to buy land in China at all. Zero, full stop. And you can't own a majority share of any company in China either. So we should just put the same, all right, if that's the way it's going to be, we're just going to follow that precedent, and it'll be quid pro quo.
Yeah.
Now, if you are a Chinese national that comes to this country legally, and you get a green card and then you're an American citizen, different rules. That's what we're saying. So I fully support any state legislation and federal legislation that would ban Chinese nationals from buying land, unless they have a green card and then they become a naturalized citizen.
Pat, talk to us about the illegal aliens that are entering illegally through the border.
How much time we got?
What's going on with the border?
All right, so real quick, run down some stats that'll just shock folks, okay? In the last 25 years, we had never had a month with over 200,000 illegal border crossings. It had not happened, okay? Under Joe Biden, it's happened 28 times. We've had 39 months in a row of over 150,000 illegal crossers.
What's that math, roughly?
It's going to be about 10 million when it comes to it, because you've got three categories. You've got the people that we apprehend, then you've got what's called the known gotaways, where when they're at maximum capacity, the Customs and Border Patrol do not have the manpower. They see 6 more people crossing, they can't even engage them because once they get them, they got to process them. There's a whole
They just got to let them go.
There's a system.
Yeah.
And so they just let those guys go. So they call those known gotaways. But then there's a third category, unknown gotaways, that nobody knows that number because they crossed and they were successfully evaded. So we don't know. Estimates with just the known gotaways and the crossers under this administration is about 10 million. So you got somebody like Alejandro Mayorkas, the Secretary of Homeland Security, that will lie to Congress repeatedly under oath in committee hearings and saying, and one of the quotes was, the border's no less secure than it has been in prior administrations. That's what he said under oath. Okay, I can prove that to be a lie. I can prove that to be false. At this juncture in their presidencies, both Obama and Trump had about 2 million illegal border crossings.
Right.
Joe Biden's had 10 million. That's not the same. In no universe is that the same. Give you some more context. We had never had a month of over 200,000. We'd never had a month ever in history of over 300,000 until December of 2023. I think it was 304,000. To give that context, in fiscal year 2017, the entire year under President Trump, we had 300,000 illegal crossings. Wow. So under that measure, it's 12 times worse. Yeah. So when they sit there and try to blame, and then Biden's going to, I can tell you right now what he's going to say on June 27th. He's going to be popped up with a bunch of Adderall. Frankenstein's going to be on.
I was going to ask you, how is this going to go down?
He's going to be twitchy. No, they're going to pump him up with so much, because you know how the body is. It gets used to it after a while. That's why they can't do it to him every day. He would have a resistance. So they do it this is my theory. And I believe I'm right. I would put some money down in Vegas on this one. Okay. So he's going to be jacked up with Adderall. I like the fact that they're going to cut mics if it's not your time to talk, because that's what he always does. That's his campaign strategy or debate strategy is he'll talk over you just to confuse. Right. So he'll say, I can't even, well, the only way you do Biden is just shuffle.
Right.
And here's Biden.
Well, we saw the video. Yeah.
But the wide eyes.
Yeah, the wide
that
eyes.
he had towards you, they were.
Hi, doggy.
Well, now you can do the forehead thing. If you have another person, just touch foreheads. Do that.
I saw that.
Oh, yeah.
With the Pope. It's so creepy.
So what he'll say, though, is he's going to say, we had a border package. Said it was bipartisan. The House wasn't consulted at all on that supposed bipartisan deal, number one. The bipartisan deal was garbage. I don't know why some of those senators fell for it. Quite frankly, I think they were just panicky and wanted to get something done. But it normalized 5,000 crossers a day. That's 150,000 in a month, where we used to have years of just 300,000. So I'm not going to normalize that. It gave Biden and Mayorkas wide powers and discretion to just declare emergency and can the whole agreement. Or law, if you will. And it did. You can chapter and verse out why that was a bad deal. But here's the argument I hope President Trump makes in return. This is not because he's going to blame congressional Republicans. This is an executive branch matter, not a legislative branch matter. You have the authority and have had the authority for 3.5 years to institute the Wait in Mexico policy, which I did. You could have just left it in place. You didn't have to do anything, but you didn't. You rescinded it. Why? Because what that said was, if you come to this country and declare, amnesty, you'll wait in Mexico while your case is adjudicated instead of getting caught and released into this country and quote unquote paroled, to the tune of now it's 800,000 illegals have been ferried by plane across the country.
Yeah.
Now there it's 400,000 or 800,000. It's hundreds of thousands that you're paying for,
I know.
that we're paying for. And we're already a debtor nation. We don't have enough money to pay our own bills, and we're going to take in foreign nationals that are going to claim asylum because they're told to by the NGOs. But be that as it may, again, you have to just make it digestible. So why not reinstitute Wait Mexico? You could have done it for 3.5 years. You have not. Every single border expert says that would reduce this flood by 70%. I've been to the border several times. They all say that. Not only the folks that work in Customs and Border Patrol at the highest levels, but also at the lowest levels. And experts in immigration, but they won't do it. What about border wall? We had paid for billions of dollars worth of it. We had the material there. We had the contractors there. We had the labor there. It was paid for, and you told them to stop. What in the world was that about? What about expedited removals? You're doing the exact opposite of everything. And furthermore, and last point, you had the Democratic majority House, a Democratic majority Senate, and you were in the White House for 2 years, and you did squat.
Nothing. Yeah.
So now you're trying to blame one third of the federal government because the Republicans have a narrow majority. It's garbage. The fault lays at your feet and no one else's.
And then also you have and I'm forgetting where it's at, where they want the illegals to vote. We have that.
Is that what this is all about? That's the plan.
Yeah, there's a lot of folks. I think that the left, I call it massive misplaced empathy. Empathy is a good thing, but you can misplace it. I don't have empathy for someone that's about to get killed on death row because they murdered 6 children.
Right.
I don't have empathy for them. The left, a large measure, do. They have empathy for on the honest cases. I don't have empathy for someone that lives in Venezuela, that crosses the border into Colombia, and then transits 7 more countries to come here claiming political asylum.
Right.
If you truly want a political asylum, you had a host of other places you could end it. You're an economic migrant, and by our laws, we have to detain you. But this administration doesn't detain, does it? They do a catch and release because we can't pay the bills. But this is another thing that, again, I would hope President Trump talked about. America's about fairness, right? We have nearly 4 million people in the world waiting to come to this country legally. They're respecting the laws and the rules of the country that they want to become a part of. They're waiting in their home countries. The average wait's 9 years. Some people literally die waiting. And when you have mass unlawful migration to this scale, those good people have to wait longer. That's un-American. 1% of the entire country of Mexico, 1 million people, are waiting in home country to come here. Those are the kinds of people that you're rooting for. Now, when the left also always interjects race into everything, I didn't know that pollution was racist.
It is now.
I didn't know it just rained on black people. Right. I thought it rained on everybody.
That's how it works.
It's pollution's racist. COVID was racist. Yeah. I mean, gas stoves were racist. More black kids are getting, their theory is, more black kids are getting asthma from gas stoves than white kids. I mean, it's just like all this garbage science. There was a study done. This stuff doesn't make any sense.
It's just the go-to.
When they say, for somebody like us sitting at the table, to say you cisgender white males don't want people crossing the border legally because they're largely brown. Of the 4 million people, the aforementioned 4 million, 95% of those folks that they're people of color, and we're rooting for all 4 million of them to come to this country because they're coming the right way.
Right.
When the country, if we need nurses and you're a nurse, come on. If we need plumbers and you're a plumber, come on. You don't give a hoot where that person's from, what gender they are, what race they are, what ethnicity they are, what religion they are. If it's going to help the country, then come on.
It's the same as I have my own business, and when I had employees and stuff, it was the same thing. People would ask, "Are you looking into, diversity or whatever?" I just want the best person. Yeah, that's all I want. Yeah. It could be a woman, it could be a guy, it could be a gay person, it could be a ultra left. It could be. I just want the best person to make my business better, and that's the way the country should look at it. And then you get back to the. It's so hard. It's kind of like the old "Have you stopped beating your wife?" question. There's no right answer for that, and it's like as white males, especially, there's no way we can. We're accused of all these things, and when you try to fight it, now you're racist. Or
when you say all lives matter equally, you're something. Yeah, that's
exactly.
now a racist comment.
Exactly.
Meritocracy, they're trying to turn into a racist comment.
Right.
You know what you have to do, like what President Trump did? Lean into it. You have every right to discuss racial matters in this country, no matter what your background is. They say white people at the baseline, but white males definitely better not talk about it, particularly because you're not marginalized.
Well, Disney, did you see the Disney deal recently where they're not going to, they had the undercover mic and everything. The guy, I'm forgetting the guy's name, O'Keefe. He always does the undercover stuff.
Great,
yeah. He has a Disney executive with him. They're having lunch or whatever. It's always at lunch. And the guy's like, we're definitely not going to be hiring white guys for our, these positions. We basically it's going to be racist. But they don't look at it as racist.
Well, you know how you can prove that they're actually being the racist? First of all, when they say this all the time, they're lazy. They have the same 50, talking points. Diversity is our strength.
Yeah, right. No.
You know what's our strength? Talent.
Yeah, talent.
Talent and skill and ability is our strength.
Results.
And and you know what conservatives believe? That success talent, ability, skill comes in all shapes, sizes, and shades. We
Well-
know it. So just even the playing field at the opportunity level, we're not going to guarantee outcomes.
Right.
They want to guarantee the outcomes. So again, lean into that. And this is what I said. I said this just recently because we're getting rid of all the DEI stuff in the military. Right. And I don't know if it'll survive the conference because the Democrats control the Senate, but we passed a really good NDAA in the House. And the left were going, da-da-da. And one of them even said, you got a ladybug.
Oh, wow. Look
The
at that.
ladybugs are our friend, baby. We don't
Yeah.
kill them.
You just saved your life, Jay.
It was a ladybug. I'm the bravest man in the world. All right. So this gal that normally seems to be a rather civil Democrat, but surely wasn't that day, was saying that I can't believe my Republican colleagues don't want minorities in the military. And it infuriated me because that is so ludicrous. It's so lazy. It's so untrue. My father's life was saved in a training incident with mortars by a black sergeant. I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for minorities in the military. So my physical being, is beholden to that. So I was so upset with her because then I asked this, though. It's interesting how you say diversity and you want this inclusion, all this. If you or one of your children needed life-saving, difficult brain surgery, what would your criteria for the surgeon be?
Right.
It would not be, I want a black woman. It would not be, I want a transgender mermaid.
Right.
It would be, I want the best.
Well, let me just say this, though, real quick. Studies have shown that transgender mermaids are the best surgeons. So that you jumped all over them, I feel like
I'm gonna
is
be
not
cancer.
fair. That
They
is
do
not
well.
fair.
I'm gonna
They
be
do very well in surgery.
And that's the thing with the left, like philosophically. They always need some cause. Now, some of the causes in the past were excellent.
Yes.
Some of the causes, like let's get rid of child labor.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's make sure that folks in this country that were born here have the same rights and privileges, not just in theory, but in practice. Yes. They all want to march with the Reverend on the Selma Bridge, but that ship sailed. So we've solved all the big things. And so then their next thing was, we need gay marriage. And once they get gay marriage, I thought to myself, are they going to run out of causes? And then the tranny thing came up. Like now they talk about the transgender community. And this and that. And if you look at statistics like in Denmark, they've been very accepting of transgender folks since like the 60s.
Right.
They have the same attempted suicide rate in Denmark for transgender as they do here because it's a mental illness. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to be unkind to any person. If you're a man and you dress up as a woman, okay, I'm going to be kind to you, but I don't have to buy into the lie that you're a woman. You're not.
Right.
A woman has a uterus. A woman has an X and a Y chromosome. I can define that. And when you ask these libs now, what's a woman?
Well, there's two things that they have gone polar opposite on that was a cornerstone of all of us, but definitely of liberals. Martin Luther King. I just want to know the quality of his heart. I don't care about the color of his skin. All that.
The content of your character.
Yeah. Race is extremely important now. It is not the, your talent, your ability, your intelligence. It is about race and race only now. That's the opposite of what Martin Luther King. And then the other side is science. Why do you not believe in science? Yet when it comes to the gender deal, let's not even look at science. We don't even need to worry about science.
Well, because
which is clearly man and woman.
They're gaming the thing. Let's just say you had a company of 1,000 employees. What the left wants to see is basically your company break down almost exactly on the racial makeup of the country. Now, that's going to be very difficult because the racial makeup in different regions are different.
Right.
Okay. They don't ever account for that. They're going to say, if you own 1,000 employees, I want 13% of them to be black. I want 17 or 18% to be Hispanic, et cetera. It never works that way because this is about culture, too.
Yes, exactly.
Irish cops in New York City. Just culturally, there were a lot of Irish that went into policing. So you're going to be overrepresented sometimes. But this is what they would never complain about. Let's say, I don't know what it is now exactly, 63% of the United States is white, roughly. Okay.
Right.
So you should have 630 white employees. If you only had 500, they wouldn't complain about it. They wouldn't say you needed to go hire more white folks.
Right.
If you were overrepresented in any category, then they'll be fine with that. So what happens when we recruit so much so that you only have, 25% white folks? They'll be like, oh, that's wonderful.
Right. Well,
why is that wonderful? It's not good or bad. It's just hire the best.
And that's where it comes back to. I look at the NFL. I'm a huge NFL fan, and they have which I understood it initially, like affirmative action. I understood the premise of affirmative action when it was brought
In
up.
the 60s, I understand it, yeah.
Exactly. But once things changed, you don't need it anymore. You don't need to use it as a crutch anymore. So the NFL has that policy of when you hire a new coach, you have to at least interview
one black coach.
black coach. And, that's okay, fine. But we don't do it on other points. We don't. Okay, we have
carrying
5
the
wide
players.
receivers on our team.
Yeah.
We don't sit there and go, you need to have 1 white receiver. We don't do that.
How about this
We
one?
don't-
You want to hire a lot of white defensive backs?
Right, exactly.
That'd be a banging industry.
Yeah, and it goes back to
Fair is fair.
and so it is about ability. It is about your culture and everything else. I always talk about this. It makes me laugh. Our head coach now at Heath used to be at Rockwall is Rodney Webb, our high school team, and he goes, the one thing that gets me mad is when I have a great player. And he could be a small guy, but he has heart and he plays hard. And everybody says, boy, if I had 11 of him, we'd be great. And he goes, no, we'd be terrible. Why? He'd be a horrible offensive lineman. He'd be a horrible kicker, because it's about your
results.
talent. You want results. And these teams that are interviewing for coaches or players, again, all they care about is getting the best because they want to win.
Why isn't there affirmative action with the NBA?
Right, exactly. That's my point.
It's a gaslighting.
It's a gaslighting.
It is. They've got us thinking, first of all, that a white straight man shouldn't be able to have an opinion on this subject.
You better not even talk about it.
Many people watching this
abortion
will say
thing.
these 3 white straight guys talking about that is,
Right.
It's
It's
arrogant.
racist.
It's,
yeah.
Well,
white
it's-
privilege. What do we know?
or it's at least doesn't have compassion, and we lack the insight. No, you know what? God blessed you with trillions of brain cells in your ears, between your ears, and you can see with your own eyes, and it's rather evident. Now, one liberal said to me, "Well, Pat, what day was it that there was just no more racism in the country? That whereas it was a diminishing phenomena?" Okay. It's like saying, when did Babe Ruth become a great baseball player? What day was that?
Right.
It's an evolution, and it just got better every single day to the point where there's one day of critical mass. It's just that knowing when, people our age, our parents taught us. Lord, there's always going to be some racist losers that live in the woods and stuff like that. But the last time I saw, the Klan ain't hiring.
Right.
Okay. Everybody knows they're just a bunch of toolboxes.
Right.
But when your parents raise you to say, it's a content of your character. Don't judge a book by their cover. All these great lessons that we learned, and particularly in the military. I was sworn in 1990, right? They taught us, first thing out of the box was, those isms are out the door. Sexism, racism, we have zero tolerance for that, and you're gone. So now why is it 35 years later, they shut down the military for 4 hours? Obviously, they rolled it into different times and had to teach them about extremism, right? So you know what I did about that? Because I'm on the Armed Services Committee. We quantified the lost opportunity costs of that labor when the military stands down for 4 hours. It's about $380 million, give or take, okay? We spent $380 million. So it was hard to get this information. We got it. The Marine Corps, 222,000 people. How many were removed in 2020 because of extremist political views or activities? 4. Out of 222,000, the Army, 1.1 million, Reserve, Active Guard, 9. So when you do the math on it, you're talking about like 27 people out of an active duty force of 1.4 million, and with Reserve, like 2.4 million. You spent $380 million on the 24 losers that are already gone?
Yeah.
It was because it fits into their narrative
that
we need to have African Americans in this country believe that white folks, by and large, there's some good ones, but there's most of them, they're out to get you. They dislike you. And literally, like, it's insane.
I agree. I know.
And even the most racist ass in this country, they're sitting on their couch watching All in the Family reruns. Right. Drinking too much beer.
Right.
And they're not actively trying to hurt people.
Something that shocked me recently, you'll remember this, Billy. Remember Mike Ritlin? Navy SEAL,
definitely.
Local Navy SEAL. He was an instructor for many years. And he told us there was pressure from his superiors that those chosen for the teams, they needed to see Hispanics and blacks.
Yeah.
Whether they were the best or not.
Yeah.
Now that can cost lives because because it's culture. If Hispanics in the Marine Corps, I'd like to see how the figures bear out. But in 1960, the country was only 1% Hispanic. A lot of people don't know because it's almost 20% now and trending upward. But there was a lot of Hispanics that would serve in the Marine Corps. Now, it could be because, the location in San Diego, there's one in Paris Island, one in San Diego, and they had more Hispanics than not. But that was cultural.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And they are excellent Marines. And just like the Irish when we came over and that we were on the Civil War, fought on both sides and distinguished themselves, and that really helped the Irish kind of gain that foothold. And that's why I think you see so many Hispanics leaving the Democratic Party, is culturally they were Democratic, but they're not experiencing this racism that they're told that they're
and that's the other thing too.
And like, I don't believe that. It hasn't happened to me.
Right.
And with the black experience being so unique, it's so unique. In fact, check this out. And when you have any demographic, it doesn't matter what ethnicity it is, as they get wealthier, they get more conservative, or at least they vote more Republican. All of them.
Right.
Save one, African Americans. They stay steadily Democrat. And but we as white Americans have to be very sensitive to that experience, because it's not the same. And I'd say this to folks: imagine if Europe was the third world continent and Africa was where you went on vacation. Imagine that Europe was the continent that folks were ripped out of and forced to be slaves for hundreds of years in this country. Imagine that white people couldn't play baseball until 1947. So you need to be sensitive that there is going to be a difference, and I think largely Americans are. But that's why it's so easy to manipulate when their grandparents, if somebody my age, their grandparents experienced all of it.
Yeah.
Not slavery, maybe, but obviously not slavery, but
Jim Crow,
everything else.
all that
Jim
stuff.
Crow,
Yeah.
all that.
Yeah.
And so who taught the parents? The grandma, right? And then who taught you? The parents. So even though somebody might have been born in 1980, they have a historic memory from maybe 1920, because of who was teaching them, and it's how it goes down. So it lags. And so we just need to be sensitive to that moving forward. But that's how the left stokes those flames of racism and victimhood. And they can do it with some wonderful films, 12 Years a Slave. You watch that, I got pissed off. I got angry. I want to kind of slap a couple white folks. I just look in the mirror and give myself a couple slaps, kidding about that. But so it's easy to stoke those flames, and that's what they do very well.
And it also comes back to, you're exactly right. But the thing that's hard, like we talked about, and we can get Amy on here for the next commercial, I'll segue into Amy's question. Yeah. But when we talked with her, and I've talked with others, when we talk about abortion, and so many of them are like, well, guys shouldn't even be talking about it. You don't know what you're going through. No, we should have just as much say, because that's half our kid, or whatever it is. Why are you excluding people? Because that's a great opportunity for you. If we don't know your experience, then tell us. And let us know. Because I'm telling you what, as a white guy, I have experiences too that others haven't had. Everybody on the earth has had experience that others haven't had. So let's put it all in there, and let's not negate somebody.
Well, you can look at data. I mean, you want to do a true study, because what the left will do too, they're very good at this. For instance, they'll say the average black college graduate does not earn as much money as the average white college graduate. On the surface, that sounds awful. Like, what's going on? And they'll use that as proof that systemic racism still exists in the country. The problem with that is you're not comparing apples to apples. What was the major?
Right.
What college did they go to? When you look at some of the things, startling statistics, and bear with me on this one, is about 35 years ago, the state of Texas used to require kids that are going to state schools to take a basic math and verbal skills test, just so they can gauge where people are when they start the college experience. And these numbers stuck in my head. As you may imagine, University of Texas was the highest. They had an average of 93. Okay? 93. Now, that's his basic skills, so you probably should get a Honda. But 93 is not bad on average. A&M was next at 91, and then it kept going down the line. Like Texas Tech was 83, University North Texas was 77. So now you see how in
Texas State probably -4.
You know what Prairie View A&M's was, which is traditionally black college, 29. That was the average. So that Urkel kid that got 100 was really bringing that up, because it wasn't the median; it was the average. Now, any college where the kids that are entering that college have basic skill score at 29, they're not really ready for a college experience.
Right.
And what's their major going to be? What skill set do they have, et cetera? So you need to compare apples to apples. So where's the study of, let's say, Ivy League engineers, aerospace engineers with that kind of specificity, and then show me, if you can then show me with 3.5 grade point average. So comparable colleges, comparable majors, comparable GPAs, and then you take a pool of white and a pool of black and then follow them for 5 or 10 years. Then that's real data. And what will that show? I suspect it will show that there's no difference. at all. But if we really want to solve it, because if there truly is systemic racism, we all need to be out there marching on the streets.
Well, and then also I always come to this too, where there's no time for the change with the people that want the change. Like we had the civil rights movement in the 60s, the 50s and 60s. Now, once the Civil Rights Act was signed, by LBJ, it wasn't going to change the next day.
No.
Okay? It's going to take generations to change the way of thinking. And we've done that with gender, we've done it with race, we've done it with income levels, all that stuff. But what we're getting accused of now is like, well, it hadn't changed yet. Well, you got to give us time. Yeah. People have to because when people came to me and said, okay, you now have to start saying they and them for transsexuals.
No, I'm never doing it.
Yeah.
Never.
But okay, you're wanting me to change that right now on something that I've been raised on opposite of forever, and you want me to change it? No, it ain't changing right now.
No, that's plural. I'm not using plural for
exactly.
singular.
The plural bothers me more than anything about it. Yeah.
I'm not going to use improper English for you.
Right.
And to your point with affirmative action and civil rights and everything, that should have been sunsetted at 75 years. I really, truly believe that was, because then you're talking about multi-generational and said this is going to be the law for 75 years, and then it's going to phase out. And that's it, because it'll never end.
Right.
It has to. And let's talk about more philosophically, too. Okay. Most of us do not live and achieve the wild dreams that we had and goals when we were a child. Mm-hmm. Because what did we're taught you should be able to dream when you're 7 years old that you're going to be the president of the United States, or you're going to be a movie actor, or you're going to be a lead singer of a band, or you're going to be really wealthy, or whatever it was. It's nearly impossible. Well, it's impossible for all of us to live those dreams. So it's a lot easier to blame someone for your shortcomings. Mm-hmm. It's a lot easier to blame someone for your
help me back.
If it had not been for this, or I had to work twice as hard or 10 times as hard. That's all fallacies. We don't do it. You know who your best friend and your worst enemy is? The person that you see in the mirror every morning. That's the one. Mm-hmm. And for these leftists to say that the government is going to provide you the dreams or the things that you deserve, that's just pandering, and those are lies. You're the only one that can do that. Mm-hmm. And I got that epiphany when I was in the Air Force. I was up in Wichita Falls, and I was driving to work, and I used to always have to drive by a trailer, or a trailer park. And one of them had a Clinton Gore sign, and it was 92. And then in 96, they had the Clinton Gore sign. Uh-huh. Clinton and Gore didn't get them out of that trailer.
Right.
But somehow they convinced them that they had a better shot of getting out of that trailer if they were they don't have it's the president of the United States not going to affect that.
No.
Yeah. There's not enough wealth. And then when you look at the numbers, and if you looked at the top 1% and you taxed and took all of their money, you still can't finance their spending.
Mm-mm. Yeah, you're so right on that. When I think of what is the one thing that sticks out the most between people on the left, people on the right, I think we're a lot closer than many believe we are. Mm-hmm. But for me, that word victimhood.
Yeah, I agree.
You're
right.
That's everything.
Yeah.
Everyone did this to you, and that's why you're failing. And that creates a certain kind of person that we can all recognize in line at Starbucks. Left, right. I mean,
right.
And then someone who believes a lot of bad shit has happened to me. It ain't going to keep me down.
Exactly.
I'm going to succeed.
Exactly.
That's a left
and that
and
used
a
to
right
be the
to
mentality, though, at one point of across the board, back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. I think was, hey, you're going to get dealt a hand that probably isn't as fair as this guy or that girl.
Life's not fair.
And
no, never.
And so fair. I'm sorry you got dealt the bad. I'm sorry you grew up in a poor neighborhood. Or I'm sorry because others were getting easier rides. I get that. But it's up to you. It's up to you.
But when people had front porches and they didn't have 500 channels on television, they socialized with each other. What was your entertainment in 1920? You might have listened to the radio. You probably read a lot. Yeah. Have you ever read those Civil War, like in Ken Burns?
Yeah.
The Civil War? Mm-hmm. These 19-year-olds were writing like poets.
Oh, these letters are unbelievable.
Because they were reading all the time.
Exactly.
And people,
uneducated people writing these letters. Yeah.
But people would stop by, too.
Right.
And now if someone rings your doorbell,
you're like,
people are running.
What the hell's going on?
But people, it was a different world.
Well, it was a great bit by I forget the comedian's name, the Manikowsko.
Oh,
one of my favorites. Where he talks about company. Remember when we used to want company?
Oh yeah,
yes.
Yeah. And now we got now that somebody comes over, everybody stop, get down, don't let them see us here.
The whole family went to the door. The kids were in socks. They slid up to the door. Nobody looked to see who it was. Right? You just opened up the door. You were like, oh my God, look at that. Now your doorbell rings? It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
But when you're socialized and when you have communities that care and you're out, what we did as kids, we went out and played.
yeah, rode your bikes to your buddies or whatever.
I can speak for myself. I had a great workout last night. 100% of the time when I work out for more than an hour, I feel great afterward. It doesn't matter how I went into it. I could have been angry. I could have been depressed. I could have been sad, whatever. Why is that? Because it's physiological. So when you're out running around, we used to play wiffle ball and freemie and softball and all these things. And when we weren't doing this,
Yes.
right, like
and
I'm doing right
this
now.
This phone is a tool for loners. I don't need to socialize. I can just get my information from here. I'm going to be alone all the time. And when you're alone, you can sometimes have dark thoughts. If you're troubled to begin with, or you have at least mental challenges. I take mental health very seriously. And if you have issues with that, we shouldn't stigmatize, because some people have it and they work through it. And they don't have it again, or they just have these struggles.
They know how to deal with it.
Yeah, and we need to support them going through it, because it is something just like a physical ailment. It is a physical ailment.
Well, and that's, I think, the core of a lot of the issues now, that we seem to have so much more mental health issues because of the social media and the phones and all that. It's a
huge
major
part of it.
component, because that's the one thing that's different than anything before when we had it. And it's the same thing when you look at the transgender deal. They do the studies, or they show the people that are switching genders. It's East Coast and West Coast, but in the middle, there's not that many. And you got to say,
there's a lot of those transgenders that the parents are making them transgender. A 4-year-old doesn't care about that stuff when they're saying.
But there's a reason that it's different. That's the coasts are doing it, but the middle of America is not, because it's not the trendy, thing that is. Maybe it's not transgender. Maybe it's just mom and dad are trying to do this, or you are.
Was it Manshausen syndrome or something like that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pat, let me ask you. I want to hit kind of rapid fire some topics here.
Okay.
And so, as we all know, Supreme Court's about to make several huge decisions very soon, and it's kind of a smorgasbord of the big topics that we all discuss. There's a little bit of something. We've got abortion, gun rights, social media content, federal regulatory authority, Donald Trump, January 6th, opioids. All this is coming up by the end of the month. And I just wanted to talk to you about some of those. And one of them in particular, because I want to show a video of you not long after you got into Washington as a U.S. Representative, but and having to do with January 6th. So one of the things they're voting on is the decision. It's dealing with the obstruction charge wielded against 1/4 of the defendants. So they're getting them on obstruction charges on that attack on January 6th, and also against Trump. This case is involving a former police officer who is against the U.S. government in Pennsylvania, who entered the Capitol charged with obstructing Congress, which was counting the electoral college votes, which I'm assuming you probably were part of that confirmed Biden won the election. So that issue is whether this law making the obstruction a crime was meant to apply only to the destruction of documents rather than interrupting a public meeting. So that's the big vote, which could be huge, especially for Trump's interference. But I know you've got a huge connection with January 6th. And I wanted to watch. WFAA did a great little snippet on an interview with you, and it's kind of crazy.
What happened Wednesday will go down as a "where were you" moment. Freshman House Rep Pat Fallon was actually inside House chambers. He spoke with us from a place he could not disclose.
Because they breached right to the doors of the chamber and they started banging on the doors.
Ironically, the rioters breached the Capitol during the objections portion of proceedings. Senior members were quickly escorted out. Lawmakers were first told to stay put, so they did. But the swarm of rioters grew, forcing evacuations. The Texas Republican moved to guard the main door, shoulder to shoulder with other Republicans and Democrats. A House not so divided.
They're standing their ground. They're not going anywhere. And I said, "You guys okay?" And then they said, "We're not leaving." I said, "All right, I'm joining you." And then we started literally breaking off pieces of furniture to make us clubs.
Pat broke off the stand for a hand sanitizer. This moment still gives chills and makes Pat's eyes well up. The time they rallied to hold the door of the House chamber.
It was just about being Americans, and it was about being a human being, to say that we are going to guard the wall.
There was a handful of lawmakers there, several from Texas, but rioters would soon breach the door too.
And things started zipping through the windows. And people, I don't know if they were bullets for sure or not 100%. They sure looked like them. And somebody screamed, shots fired, rounds being fired.
With shots fired, they all had to leave the chambers. What happened after, we have all sadly seen in pictures. Pat is proud to return to the chambers late tonight.
You cannot ever bow to the mob, and you never bow to bullies. The people that came in there today unlawfully were bullies, and they were cowards.
That sanitizer stand will go up on Pat's wall, a memory of his "where were you" moment.
So that was 3.5 years ago. I'm interested to know how you feel now.
That's interesting. I haven't seen that since. So that was real time. Now we know a lot more now. We didn't know who the people that were breaching the Capitol were. And we were told that they did take the Senate. There was a couple of inaccuracies in that. Number one, there were only Republicans that held the door. It was Tony Gonzalez, myself, Troy Nels, Ronnie Jackson, Mark Wayne Mullen, who's now in the Senate. Colin Allred, who claims like he was holding the door. He tucked tail and ran. We ran through the tape, so he's full of shit. Pardon my French. Sitting there, he's holding the door. He was there. He was one of the last to go, but he never came to the doors. In fact, I saw him. I was talking to some other members. I ripped off the hand sanitizer station, and then I looked back. He was gone. So don't sit there and tell me that you were freaking, you were William Travis. I mean, come on.
So you were scared?
Oh, yeah. We didn't know what was going on. So there were not shots. There were shots fired because Ashley Babbitt got killed, and we heard those. But it looked like there were bullets coming through the window. It was somebody that had a small flagpole, and it went 1, 2, 3.
There was popping.
But did you see that glass, that dust?
Yeah,
you saw that picture?
Yeah.
That Ronnie and I, both military guys, and we're like, whoa! I'm not fighting an AR-15. We just didn't know what was going on, and we were told certain things at that time. This was hours old.
That was on January 6th.
That was on. Oh yeah, that was like I
crazy.
think that I don't know with time. That was a few hours after it all
and
happened.
You had just come to Congress.
Yeah, 3 days.
3 days.
3 days.
Wow.
So what we found out later was, of course, that the vast majority of people that even entered the building did not break anything. They did not harm anyone. A lot of them were waved in. Like we didn't know that in that interview. You know, and when they walked in unlawfully, it was probably it was obviously unwise to do, but they weren't hurting anyone. And that came from Director Wray of the FBI, because I got to question him in the Oversight Committee, and I said at the time they had arrested 500. I think that number finalized at a little north of 700. But I said, Director Wray, were most of the people that entered the building that day, were they breaking things and hurting people? No, the vast majority were not. So that's trespassing. That is a misdemeanor charge, should be anyway. And they're treating them like they want to throw them in the gulag. They want to put them in re-education camps. But when the left, so anyway, let's just break it down like this. January 6th, Nancy Pelosi claimed cost $2 million worth of damage to the Capitol. I asked her for an itemized list, and I have never gotten that. So that was just, I think, a made-up figure. There was some damage done, obviously, but it wasn't that much great. And there was no people that were killed by rioters. Zero. Okay? You take the George Floyd riots, $2 billion worth of damage from insurance companies, so folks that do this for a living. 25 people lost their lives, and it expanded over hundreds of cities, and it took months. This was a riot that took 4 or 5 hours. Now, it was the Capitol, and it was unfortunate. And don't bait in and fall for the trap that I think Nancy Pelosi set when she didn't have adequate security. That's the first thing that day I thought was, where's the security? Because you hope for the best, but you plan for the worst. And there wasn't anything. So it's unfortunate. But knowing in hindsight what went down, there's a lot of people that entered that building that weren't cowards and they weren't bullies. They were walking around. Now, I'm not saying, like one of my colleagues said, they were tourists. Don't fall into that left-wing trap. It's unfortunate that anybody came into the building and didn't follow the law that day, but the vast majority weren't hurting people.
But there were a number of them that were like, they show them in Pelosi's office and they're taking things.
Then you
those
know
folks need to be.
I don't think they need, if you were walking around and you took a podium from her desk, I don't think you need 6 years in jail.
No,
either.
At all.
But yeah, you should have a fine and, justice should be served. Now, if you're beating on cops if you're breaking things, that's different.
Yeah, that's
and
what I was going to
were-
say. The people that were busting down the doors.
Well,
and
and
things
you know
like
what?
that.
Let's be honest too. There were a couple hundred people there that day that were looking for mayhem.
Yes.
Out of the 200,000 or hundreds of thousands that were there. Much like when a sports team wins a championship
Yes.
and the cars get burnt.
Yep.
Those kids that burned the cars weren't at the game.
Right.
You know, they
And
weren't
don't
rooting
probably
for the
care about
Rangers
it
or the
whatever.
Yankees
Yeah,
or the
yeah,
Red Sox.
yeah.
They were just there for mayhem.
Yeah.
So don't paint the hundreds of thousands of people that were there because of the 200 people that was everybody that was protesting George Floyd. Were they murderers? No, but the left, I mean, hell, Kamala Harris bailed them out of jail, but they want to throw these people in the gulag. So I think that justice certainly in some cases has not been served, and it was the punishments weren't fitting the crimes there.
Okay, another decision to be made is going back to abortion, particularly states with very strict laws like Idaho. So Biden, they're challenging Idaho's very strict abortion laws. Doctors in Idaho are saying they can't even treat women who may lose organs or reproductive ability, have uncontrollable bleeding, suffer serious health consequences, that kind of thing. What's your take on those kind of pregnancies?
Okay, I've always been like Ronald Reagan and apparently President Trump, because we had a discussion about this last week, that life of the mother. The exceptions for me with pro-life is life. If the life of the life, not health, because every woman that's ever given birth has risked their health, but life of the mother, rape and incest. That's it. And so if this is a life of the mother situation, then they should be able to terminate the pregnancy.
And let me take that into something that kind of hits home for me.
Now, there's a lot of people that don't agree with that, but that's my belief.
That's your thought.
Yeah.
Something hits home with me and my wife is IVF. So we've seen very recently some interesting, the Southern Baptist Convention just came out and said it's immoral, it's a sin.
I don't think so, personally. And I wouldn't vote. I think IVF is valuable invaluable rather, for folks to, have children in a lot of instances. And so I think from a policy standpoint, we should have left it as it is. I think from a political standpoint, it is an absolute disaster if the Republican Party doesn't fully support it. I haven't talked to any. I'm sure there are some, but the vast majority of folks that I've talked to on the Republican side of the ledger want IVF access for parents.
Yeah. Well, and me and Billy had this discussion when we were talking about abortion, but
with Amy.
Yeah. Alabama is one that they ended up at a lower court level stating that those embryos that were frozen had the rights of children.
And I think the Republican legislature did amend the law.
Well, they quickly, when they realized that all the IVF clinics were shutting down, they quickly, within 2 weeks, were like, no, we're okay. But here's the problem I have with that. And tell me, and y'all tell me what you think. If you're going to say life begins with the sperm entering the egg and there is an embryo, how can you have it both ways? That's life. And when 99% of those embryos are discarded that are not going to be used, how can then we say, well, that's not really abortion?
Right.
Do you see where I'm going with that? I feel like it's trying to have it both ways.
There's some medical nuances there. I think the natural conception, when the life truly develops, and I have to consult some of my medical doctor friends, but there is differences from what they told me before, because I remember having this discussion. But I think natural conception is one thing, IVF is quite another for me personally.
Okay.
And I know you got to go, so I want to hit on one more thing
Go.
that is extremely important. You're on the 1988 national champion Notre Dame football team. Lou Holtz, how cool was he?
Amazing.
Okay, and then you were wide receiver, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then there's a
great
photo.
picture. Very
good.
There's a good picture. I want to put up a photo. I saw this deal on you where you said you were in the photo carrying Lou Holtz off the field.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Okay, now where are you?
I'm on the other side on that one, and there's different pictures where you can see my face smiling.
Okay,
that was in the Fiesta Bowl. We beat West Virginia 34-21. It was really 34-13. They scored a garbage touchdown and went for a two-point conversion. So we just dominated them. We covered the spread. I think my father was very happy about that. Statute of limitations. I think he's safe.
Yeah.
But, Coach Oates was amazing. He really taught us that wild success doesn't have to be for somebody else.
Yeah.
That you can achieve lots of things. You have to believe it first, and then you have to execute. You can't hit a target you can't see. All these wonderful things that I followed. I don't think and I've told him this, I wouldn't have had the entrepreneurial career I had I not met him, had I not been part of that team. I wouldn't have definitely run for anything in public office had I not known him and our teammates. And we're brothers. There was 100 of us on that team. I think there's 85 of us or so still alive. Mm-hmm. And
wow.
I know that's the sad part.
Wow.
But and we love that man. He is. I was a reserve player for him years and years ago, and he came out and did a fundraiser for me. He's always willing to do that. And we just gave him the Congressional Patriot Award. I would get to award that to him at Notre Dame, at the administration building with the Golden Dome. Some of his kids came out, his grandkids came out, and we talked for about an hour. We laughed and we cried, and most of his players do an impersonation of him.
Yeah,
because he had a little list.
Yes,
I get talks like this. You got to leave the lady in the dome, your assistant coaches, most of all your teammates, but your head coach. And he would gather us and say at the beginning of every season, he goes, "Men, we're all united in common goal to keep my job." So he's very quick. He's very clever. He's still that way now. He's darn near 87 years old.
Wow.
And he's a member of Augusta, by the way.
Is he really?
Yeah, and I told him, Coach, I'm ready to play.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then real fast, that was the year of the Catholics versus convicts
Yeah, that was
t-shirt.
the first year,
And you said, that was highly controversial. I remember when all that came out and everything. Do you have any memories of that?
Yeah, well, they did the 30 for 30 on it.
Yes, I was going to bring
I'm
that.
in the credits.
Are you really?
I didn't get interviewed, but I was in the credits because they needed a playbook. They were going to go a different way with it and have a certain key play. They were going to go to our playbook and then kind of animate it from the page. And Pat Terrell, who'd done the Pick Six, he's a good friend of mine. And they called, the producers were calling Terrell and they said, "Do you have a playbook?" And he goes, "No." And they said, "Nobody has a playbook. Do you know any player that you think still has a playbook?" And he said to him, "Oh, Fallon's got one. I guarantee it." And then they call me and I go, "Yeah, I got one." I kept it. So
that is great. I highly recommend that documentary because it's fascinating. On three guys that were in Notre Dame at the time do the T-shirts. They get in trouble.
They made like $300,000. This is like what I remember from back then. They made because look at that shirt. It doesn't say Notre Dame. It doesn't say Miami.
Right.
It's implied, and I think they lost the civil lawsuit on the implied law. But because we were selling shirts like that before, but it would have a big Notre Dame on it and say Catholics, and then have the University of Miami symbol.
Because you did T-shirts, so you had on your deal.
I may or may not have done some bootleg shirts in 1987 or 88, and they may or may not have said like, "This is your brain with an interlocking ND. This is your brain on drugs." University of Miami symbol, and I may or may not have made thousands of dollars on those items.
Statute of limitations, I think.
I don't remember. I'll do the Hillary Clinton. I don't recall. But those guys were real clever. So they were in the stores all over South Bend, into Michigan, anywhere really within a 50-mile radius of the university. They made a fortune. They had to pay a lot of it back to the university and then promised they would never sell them again.
Right.
It didn't stop the bootleg market.
Right.
Bootleg market went gangbusters. We won that game 31-30. We lost the next year to them down in Miami.
Yes.
We were undefeated, 27-10. We came in second. That was our only loss. Then we whooped the heck out of Colorado. They were number one, and we beat them.
Yeah.
But then the next year they came back up to Notre Dame and we beat them. It was the next year after. And then they canceled the series because it was so heated.
Oh, it was crazy.
Well, it was
crazy.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was. And then the whole thing too. Walsh, I think, was his name.
Steve Walsh.
Walsh,
great quarterback.
Was on the. He was on the basketball. Finally made the basketball team, if I remember. One of them made the basketball team.
Oh yeah, and
then he got kicked off because of
that.
He was a walk-on. He finally made it, and then got kicked off because of the whole T-shirt deal.
I met Russell Maryland years later. After his Cowboys, and he was retired, and we had a good laugh on the whole game.
Yeah.
I go, "Russell,
that's so great."
You remember that day, October 15th, 1988? He's like, "Man, you got to bring that one up."
Yeah, because controversial ending with the what was it, Gary, the running back that said he fumbled. He said he didn't fumble at the goal line.
Right,
yeah.
But did you see on that? I think on the third year they showed where there was a Miami touchdown. He didn't catch it.
No, he didn't catch it. Yeah,
and he rolled out. He didn't survive the ground.
Right,
I didn't know that until I saw that one.
That's
I was
fascinating.
Now, my friend Pat Terrell not only does the Pick Six, right, and he is a character. He's a very successful businessman now up in Chicago, and him and his wife are wonderful people. But when he went up to block, so Jimmy Johnson's going for two.
Yes.
We didn't have ties then. He's
Yes.
going for the win.
Yeah,
and they do a fade. And Pat, it's one-on-one coverage right by the out-of-bounds marker, deep in the end zone, and he goes to knock the ball down. And he misses it. He whiffs it. Both hands miss. It hits his helmet. And it goes donk. You're there, right? About to catch it. Pat goes, woof. Totally whiffs. 0 for 2. And then it hits his helmet and goes this way. Thank the Lord.
Yeah.
Oh, it's 2:30, Lord. We do remember. And we know that you had that.
Oh, that's great. I wanted to hit
You had a
on
rooting
that.
interest, Lord.
Okay, I know you have to go.
Yeah, I'm going to meet my friend Sean Volk, at the brewery for lunch.
Okay.
And I'm very late.
All right, and we do want to have you back because we have so much more.
Yes,
If you would be willing to come back at some point.
See, this is Sean right now. Hopefully, when he watches this, he can. I
Well,
can't
we blame
today, thought it was
Sean then.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you know what? It's good because he thought it was tomorrow. So I'm really early, and he'll be really late.
There you go. There you go. Well, thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. I mean, there was some, Jay, I know we had a lot more to get to. We want to get to.
That's
so,
all right.
Jay, anything else? I know you have a ton more.
We'll get to it next time.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one anecdote. This is a good one. True story. I'm up in Bedminster with President Trump last summer. And there's about 8 of us at lunch, or dinner rather, in his country club. And he's going around the room. He's sitting in kind of the middle of the table. I'm at one of the ends. And he's asking people for your comments, thoughts. You got questions? And he comes to me. And he says, Pat, you're saving the best for last. Joking around. And he says, what do you think? I said, well, Mr. President, I got a question for you. I noticed that in 2007, Vladimir Putin stole a couple of provinces from the country of Georgia under the presidency of George W. Bush. And then in 2014, he took all of the Crimea under Obama. And then, of course, launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine under Joe Biden. But in the 4 years you were president, from 17 to 21, he didn't embark on any new military adventures. Inconvenient truth for the left, and that's another one that I hope he points out in the debate.
in the debate.
And I look over and I say, Mr. President, why do you think that is? Now, he's very animated, and when you talk to him one-on-one, it's like you're at a rally. I mean, he's a great guy.
So what we see on TV, that's him.
That's him. Oh, except he's very gracious. Like if he was sitting in here, he would say, Jay, Bill, can I get anything for you? It's great. Look at this handsome young man. Look at all those wires and such. We're all going to be working with this guy someday. Soleimani died like a dog.
So he's gracious to everyone around him.
He wants you comfortable. He wants you happy. And they never mention that part, of course, in public. So he thought about it a minute. He said, Bet, I told him, I said, Vladimir, we've had talks about this. I said, Vladimir, you cannot invade Ukraine. You can't do it. Don't make me. I know you got your Iron Dome over Moscow. Don't make me lap it off. And then I'll have to come for you, Vlad. And I don't want to do that. And he's talking to me. And then he looks at me and he says, Bet, I think you believe me. Like 5%. He believed me. But then he got very serious and he said, he said, I made it very clear to him that if you invade Ukraine, I will unleash the American energy sector. And we will be exporting so much natural gas and so much oil, because those are global commodities, that we will depress the price to the point where you will not be able to fund that war.
Right.
And you keep that at about $40, $45, $50 a barrel, Putin doesn't have all this extra money. Now, when you restrict that, which Joe Biden has done, and the price of a barrel of oil goes up to $80, $90, $100, that's plenty of extra money for a petrostate. Yeah. Right? And Putin knew Trump was serious. And he didn't do anything for the 4 years. Now, he was supposed to be the one that was the Russian collusion, and he was going to give Putin a free hand. But the reality is exactly the opposite, and it can't be argued any other way.
Right.
Because those are inconvenient facts.
Right.
And that's what President Trump knew. So, who are you going to feel safer under? And they respected him.
Yeah.
And he knew he wasn't going to, I'm going to be a little bit colloquial here, but he wasn't going to take any shit.
Right.
When you're the strongest country in the world, you're not looking for fights. But when you got somebody with big, giant muscles that can fight and that's willing to.
No, we don't have that.
Those shooters that kill the innocent people, do they ever hit the police station?
No, they don't. No, that's right. You're right. That's why they go to the other
Do they
places.
go to a military base?
Yeah. No.
No. The bullies at the bar, they don't pick the big, giant guy. You know, if
Okay.
they do, they're not going to last long.
So do you still need to go to lunch then? You still need to go or not?
I can do 3-4 more.
Okay, because we got Hunter Biden. I know we want to hit on the Hunter Biden laptop.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't want to
So
lose that.
you are on the
Oversight Committee.
Oversight Committee. So my first question is:
There's so much on that. Oh my goodness.
a couple quick, interesting questions.
We could do a whole hour on just that, by the way.
That's a whole segment. Have you met and talked to Hunter Biden himself?
I've met him. And I have spoken with him. I've asked him and his attorney direct questions. When we had the 7-hour deposition, I was there for the entire time. I thought it was a very well choreographed lies, and because they weren't making much sense. I'll give you a perfect example. He was given a diamond that was reportedly worth in excess of $80,000 by a foreign national. His reasoning behind and his explanation for that was that diamond was worthless. We didn't even keep it. We threw it away. And the gift that we gave him, which was, I think, some fancy booze, would cost way more than that worthless diamond. You believe that? Does anybody believe that? I threw away a diamond. It was so worthless, that kind of thing.
Threw it away.
Here's another one. And then, he had his lawyer there, Abby Lowell, who's a very good defense attorney. He's like Johnny Cochran, version kind of thing. And so you got to really be careful with, he would just lawyer you up constantly. But I said, what about the Porsche?
Pop that up there, Caden.
Okay. And they go, well, what? They sent money to you to buy a Porsche. And no, and the lawyer, Abby Lowell, he didn't send it to him. He didn't send it to my client. He sent it to a shell company that your business partner controls. Where did the money go? It was $142,300. What'd you get? Why did he give you that money? They couldn't have a reason for it. It just so happens that $142,300 was wired to a shell company that I think it was, God, he's got so many business associates. But to one of it was Devin Archer's. And then it just so happened that the very next day, Devin Archer sent $142,300 to a Porsche dealership in New Jersey, and it just so happened that Hunter Biden then got title to a $142,300
That's
car.
coincidence.
Yeah.
It's a miracle.
I'm not sure why you're
And
doing
Archer,
that.
when we deposed him, he didn't know why they would give Hunter Biden that money. So apparently, Kareem Masimov and Kenez Rashikev just give that much dough away to the vice president's son for kicks and giggles.
For people to understand, you get this laptop because people that may not understand the Hunter Biden laptop deal. He takes it to a pawn shop, right? Now, what was was he just selling it? Was that what he was doing?
I think it was getting repaired.
Getting it repaired. Okay. So the thing I'm confused about then. So if he's getting it repaired, it's still his property, right? Or is it because the pawn shop guy's the one that showed the emails, right?
Right. It might have been. Sometimes when you go to pawn shops, you use it as collateral. They give you
That's
a loan
right.
and
It's a
that,
pawn.
and then
Yeah.
they technically is their property until you bring it back.
So
I don't know, but he ended up with it. It was real. The FBI said it
Yeah.
wasn't. They were lying.
Yeah.
The press tried to suppress it. The social media companies tried to suppress it. And what we found was there's patterns here. So I'll give you a couple examples. And literally, I think you could teach a 3-credit college course on this stuff. It would take that much because it's to unravel it all. But Joe Biden said in 2020 when he was running for president that I have no idea what my son does.
Right.
Never met any of his business associates. That was his first lie. Because indeed, I don't know, Miguel Magnani, Miguel Velasco from Mexico that were his associates.
Right.
Joe Biden gave him a tour of the White House. Gave him a tour of the they took a picture in the briefing room. He had a Zoom meeting with Carlos Slim, the Mexican billionaire. Jonathan Lee, one of Hunter's Chinese associates, Joe Biden wrote his kids a letter of recommendation. So then when that was discovered, they go, well, he didn't have anything to do with the business part.
Right.
Oh, okay. So now we have a second lie. He didn't have anything to do with his business part. And then you take something like this Chinese, because any company that's of any note in China, the Chinese government knows about, the Chinese communists know about, then they can control them. So this CEFC starts to do business with Hunter and his business associates and all these shell companies. And by the way, I was in business for decades. I didn't have 20 shell companies.
That's a lot of shit.
That money's running through. And there's something called a Suspicious Activity Report, or SAR. And let's just say, Bill, if you got $1 million sent to you in Kazakhstan, from Kazakhstan,
Right.
away that's a SAR. They're not saying necessarily you did anything wrong, but it's suspicious.
Right.
Okay? If you get 1 or 2, whatever, most Americans would never get any. The Biden family had over 150 generated on their activities. Because the business, by law, if it doesn't make sense to them, they're supposed to generate this report. Or there's $5 million in this account, and we don't understand why it would be there. There's no business being conducted. To this day, none of the Bidens have told any of us what business they were in.
Right. He's just getting money.
We know what it is. It's influence peddling and selling access. So here's some interesting things. You've got a guy named Vadym Pozharsky, who was the COO of Burisma, which was an energy company in Ukraine. And the CEO was, these names, Mykola Zlochevsky. Okay. So they hire him for $1 million a year, Hunter Biden. He has no experience in the energy sector. He's got no experience in successful entrepreneurship, yet they hire him. Now, his father was the vice president of the United States, whose portfolio included Ukraine, who, interestingly enough, they had a board meeting, and they wanted to have it in the United States, but Mykola Zlochevsky is a shady character, and he couldn't get the visa. So they had it in Dubai. And Devon Archer at the time was Hunter Biden's best friend. He was on the board as well. He was also getting paid a pile of money. So they have their board meeting in Dubai, and Devon Archer testified that they were having this meeting and that Zlochevsky wanted him to make a call. And magically, Hunter said, I don't remember who I called. I don't know who it was. It could have been, I might have called Washington. It might probably my daughter. I talked to her a lot. Could it have been your father? I mean, it could have been. I talked to my dad a lot. I don't know. He didn't remember. Just Hillary Clinton. He didn't recall.
Right.
Oh, you don't recall. Okay. Because there's another theory that he called his father and said that, Dad, they need our help. This is Zlochevsky. Could you ring your dad? Okay. Because some people say things when they're not under oath, and they say different things when they're under oath. So maybe that happens, right? So I believe that version because it just so happened a few days after that magic call to somebody in Washington, D.C., Joe Biden ended up in Ukraine.
Right.
And Joe Biden said, if you don't fire Viktor Shokin, who was the prosecutor investigating who? Hunter Biden's boss, Mykola Zlochevsky, we're going to withhold $1 billion in, I think it was loan guarantees.
Yeah.
And they were like, whoa. And now Biden claims that he wanted Shokin fired because he wasn't doing enough to fight corruption. Oh, I know, right? Okay. Zlochevsky was, I think the American ambassador called him out as like a poster child for corruption. So this guy's dirty, right? The vice president's son's working for him. It's his portfolio. Now, Shokin had already seized a plot of land, 1 or 2 homes from Zlochevsky, and a Rolls Royce. So it seemed to me that he was on the job, on the case. A few months later, he does indeed get fired, and they get their loan guarantees. They get their money, and Zlochevsky was never investigated seriously again.
Yeah. Right.
So maybe, just maybe, that's why when I talk about this stuff to folks, I'll tell them there's 2 standards. There's preponderance of the evidence, and there's reasonable doubt. Preponderance of the evidence is what civil cases are based on, right? And I'm no attorney. In fact, I never even took my LSATs. But preponderance of the evidence is it more likely than not? I think that threshold was met a year ago. It's more likely than not that the Bidens engaged in influence peddling and selling access. Reasonable doubts to get to Biden, Joe Biden anyway, it's a difficult standard. Now, he also testified that he never got any money from China. His son never got any money from China. We know that's not true. Millions. But remember the 10% for the big guy that a lot of I found very credible former business associates of Hunter said that Joe Biden was getting 10%. He was the big guy. So an CEFC, $5 million gets wired to this whole shady web. Hunter's take on that, his cut was $400,000. So you know what he did? A day or two later, it was very short thereafter, he got the $400,000. He sent, and they're always going to this company, and they wire it to this company, this company. So then he takes $40,000, and he wires it to his uncle, Jim Biden. Now, then he takes that $40,000 and gives it to Joe Biden and said it's a loan repayment. What's 10% of $400,000?
Right.
I mean, it's just to find it awful coincidental. And then there was another company that Jim Biden shook down for $200,000, and he gave that money to Joe Biden for another loan repayment. But they never show us where Joe Biden gives the money to Jim.
Right. The loan, actual loan.
There's just not enough to get him on that. When I'm watching Hunter go down with this, false information on an application to get a gun.
Yeah.
To me, that's the equivalent of the gangster Italian mobster who killed 40 people, but they have to get him on tax evasion.
Yeah, Al Capone.
Like it just felt like a.
Well, there's a couple things.
We
We have Hunter on dead to rights on a few things. One of which is he did not pay his taxes. Okay, there's two time frames in that. One of them is already out of the statute of limitations. And what I asked him when he was sitting literally as close as we are. And then Abby Lowell trying to make him out to be some victim, like you Republicans want him to relapse, and So the first thing I said was, I had my dad had alcohol issues, and he conquered them and lived the last 30 years of his life just as I'm damn near a saint. Okay, he passed away a couple years ago. The last thing I want to see you or anyone else relapse. So that's just horse hockey. So I want to put that at the table. That I'm offended that you would even say that.
And that's how you would speak literally back to them.
That's what I said to him, just like this.
Yeah.
I said, so that's ridiculous. I said, but my question is, there were millions of dollars that you didn't pay in taxes that are outside the statute of limitations. Then the lawyer goes crazy. How do you know that's outside the statute of limitations? Oh, yeah, according to you. Oh, I don't know because I can read the law. If it's 4 years and it happened 5 years ago, ass, you're a clown, then it's outside the statute of limitations. No, I didn't say that part. Then it's outside the statute. I don't need to go to law school. Hey, I got my law degree. To know that. Right? So, but morally, you can repay that. Mm-hmm. You're not bound to by the law,
right?
But you're supposed to be. He tried to make himself out to be this innocent. Oh, I'm just such a nice guy. Then repay it. Your dad can repay it. Your uncle can repay it, but you don't. Right. My point is, if you want to talk about character and you're trying to say that you're clean, it was just all the drugs that were doing the business, and that you were this highly qualified guy, then repay it. You're not going to. Right. And then Abby Lowell said that's outside the scope that we agreed upon. We didn't agree to talk about that. Yada yada yada. That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Will he go to jail?
No.
What there's a lot of us that we've been just burnt so many times with this dual standard of justice.
We just keep hearing it, and
we build calluses, right? Well, he's going to get tried on the tax of it because there's another case that is within the statute where he didn't pay the taxes, and they got him to the rights on it. So there's a few things that can happen. What they want to do more than anything is delay.
Yeah.
Think about this. It's June, middle of June, right? 6 months of the year. In 5 months, there's going to be an election. Actually, 4.5 months.
Yeah, exactly.
Election's over. They don't want him. Now, if he gets sentenced and he can appeal, the judge is almost going to let him out, until the appeals are exhausted, which could be years. So what he's banking on is Daddy coming in to save me, because after the election, if Biden loses, he's going to pardon him. What does he care?
Right. That's
he's
going
to pardon him.
Right.
And if he wins, he'll try not to have to do it until the day that he's got to go to the jug, and he's going to hope that's after the midterms, because then he'll pardon him.
Right? But he's flat out said, they've asked him, and Joe Biden has said, no, I will not pardon him. Obviously,
do you believe that?
Right.
Joe Biden lies.
He can change his mind.
The next time I'm on here, I want to show. I'll send you guys. It's in my Facebook.
We'll be in the fancy studio then.
Ooh, all right. But there's a 4.5 minute or so clip from ABC News in 1988 where they exposed Joe Biden's lies. I mean, they got him.
Yeah.
He's sitting there. He's 48 or so at the time. He's running for president. He's in New Hampshire, and this guy asked him a question that he doesn't like. Now, he's been a U.S. senator since he was about 30, so he's very arrogant. He's very entitled. He's the smartest guy in the room. Just ask him. And he gets really mad with this guy. He gets very pissy with him, and he says, well, you want to trade intellects? I have a higher IQ. Whose IQ's high?
Oh, wow.
Like, you don't talk to a voter like that, number one. And then he said, he starts to brag. I graduated summa cum laude in my class, and I was top of my class and all this stuff. All those things were lies.
Right.
Now, you know that.
Well, remember he got in trouble for the plagiarism, too, on the speeches.
That's in there, too.
Yeah.
And he lied, even like he tries to cover his lies. He said he plagiarizes that British labor leader, right?
Yes.
And he gets caught. And then he said, well, I had just read it, and I just went with it. But in his own speech, he said, I was thinking about this on the way over here in the drive, which is clearly a lie.
Right.
That you didn't just think about it and you pulled it from the sky. And then he plagiarized RFK as well, like word for word, instead of simply saying, you know what, in the great immortal words of Robert Kennedy, boom. And
Just say it.
Okay, let me ask you this.
Oh,
Hunter,
can I tell you one thing about Hunter?
Yeah.
We're at the deposition. We got the Republicans and the Democrats. And it starts out, and there's that person, Eric Swalwell.
Yeah.
The Chinese trader. Bang Bang. No, I'm sorry, it was Fang Fang. Yeah. When we say, like Ted Cruz says, when we say screw the Chinese, we don't mean it literally. But Eric Swalwell takes it literally, I guess. And he's sitting there and he goes off about, are these transcripts going to be made public? You're going to edit them. And, hey, ass clown, it's already agreed that these transcripts will be released verbatim within 24 hours. So it takes a while to let that seep into his dumb brain. But when it does, he finally sits down. And as he's sitting down, he says, are those transcripts going to be made in English or Russian?
Oh,
because he wants to be all funny. And I stood up and I said, for you, Chinese. He didn't say a word for hours.
Shut him up. Huh?
And then,
go ahead.
Oh, it's all right. And then Hunter's sitting there lying about how it's very normal for him to have his business associates eat lunch with his dad.
Right.
Totally normal. And he's done it how many times? He couldn't remember. Dozens of times. But they weren't ever going to talk business. And then I thought about it, and Matt Gaetz was sitting next to me, and I leaned over. I said, Matt, you ever have your business associates hang out with your dad and have lunch? Because I thought about it. I've been doing business for almost 30 years, and I never had literally 0 times had my dad sit in on a business lunch. So I mentioned that. I just piped up. It was the only time I really spoke out of turn in those 7 hours. I said, excuse me, I've never had that happen. I've been in business 30 years. Uh-huh. And then Swalwell says, oh, well, good for you, or something like that. And I just turned on him. And sometimes you got to go primal. And I just looked at him, because this is a game of intellect. And I never want to be, physically imposing or anything. But I just looked at him. He was across the room. I go, dude, you are such a punk. Like that. And just was staring at him. He didn't do anything at him. Because he is.
That's so
I've
funny.
challenged him to a boxing. I want a legal boxing match.
Oh,
3 2-minute rounds. For charity. I think it would be a huge pay-per-view.
Yeah.
And I'm 15 years older than the guy. He won't do it. And I've never taken a boxing lesson in my life.
Does Hunter come across as arrogant? Is that a trait?
He was very entitled, and he always has been. But in those 7 hours, it was a persona. It was a character he was playing, which was high. He was like this, so accommodating. He would have gotten you a water. He would have mixed you an iced tea. He's like, hey, no, I just from a
pull
personal,
a ladybug off the neck of somebody.
The ladybug's still chilling right there.
So he had it down.
Oh, he had it down. But you can sometimes you can bring the real person out. When they were saying that, because he's dead to rights on the WhatsApp, thing on the laptop, right? Where he's shaking down the Chinese guy. Well, in the deposition, he absolutely lied and said, "I thought it was a different person." We have a criminal referral because of this. We think this is perjury. He knew exactly what it was. It was the person. It wasn't what he was trying to say it was, that he was just, I was really high. I didn't know what I was doing. And I said, why don't you just share your geolocation, you and your dad, from your phones, and we'll know if you were in the same room or not. They're not willing to do that, of course. And also, unfortunately, with records from cell phones, like we could know, there's a way to know who he called when he was in Dubai.
Right.
But the companies don't, the AT&Ts and the Verizons conveniently don't keep those for just more than 2 years.
Oh, wow.
So they say. I think it was a murder case, we'd find it.
Yeah.
Because that's dead to rights. I mean, I just want the truth.
Right.
If you didn't do anything, fine. But they're not. We all get accused of things. I got accused of insider trading.
Yeah, that's right. That's
okay.
right.
Which was laughable. But that's what it is. What it is. So what I did was I got my entire stock portfolio that I traded while in Congress, because that's what I used to do. I hired a guy way before I was in Congress. I said, do trades, do options, make a little extra scratch, that kind of thing. And I had dough. That account had about $3 million in it. And as soon as I got to Congress, That account then had $2.3 million in it. And I think it's recovered a little bit, like 2.6 now or something. I'm still underwater from my So Gordon Gekko, I'm not, number one. But I was in
I don't think you understand the concept of insider trading.
Right? You're supposed to make money.
Yeah, supposed to make money. Yeah, exactly.
So in March of 2022, I had one guy from here in Rockwall and one guy from Sherman that were running against me, and they made a big deal of it. One guy spent a couple $100,000 saying I was his inside trader. So I would bring my statements, all of them, and say anybody's willing. I just redacted the account number. That's it. So we're in Plano doing a town hall, and this Democrat who was a forensic accountant sat right in the front row, raises his hand and just starts reaming me, thinking that he's got me. And I go, I want to thank you for bringing, because I don't bring it up unless somebody brought it up, but thank you for asking that question. I have them right here. He goes, can I look at them? I go, you are welcome to. I'm just going to have a staff member with you so nothing disappears. The rest of the town hall, which took about 90 minutes, the guy is combing through. Yeah. So at the end of it, I go, hey, did you get enough action? Yeah. What do you think? I wouldn't take stock advice from you.
That's greatness.
And then Unusual Whales, who uncovers this stuff, because they comb through all of our disclosures. He actually put out that I was the standard for transparency, because I said I'll send you everything.
Yeah.
And but here's the naivete. There is a cottage industry of folks out there that are trying to take down Republican members of Congress. Mm-hmm. They don't care about Pat Fallon. Mm-hmm. They care about the fact that I just also happen to be a Republican member of Congress, and because that's a great headline. Republicans are in this for the money kind of thing, which is a joke. Mm-hmm. And I was so mad because I said, whoa, I haven't even traded a stock in 2+ years. And you're trying to say I made a 52% return on my stock portfolio? What they do is it's what you report. So in other words, if you bought a stock for $500 and you sold it for $600, they wouldn't say you made $100. They'd say you made 18%.
I see.
But if that was the only thing that you traded that year, they say you have an 18% return on your portfolio, which is not true.
Right.
You had an 18% return on what you traded on. So I do think that members of Congress should not be trading.
Right.
Now, as a rank and file member, you don't really have an effect on the market either way. But they were trying to get me on Business Insider. He's on the Armed Services Committee, and he owns General Electric stock. They're a vendor of everybody's a vendor of the U.S. military. I mean, Coca-Cola is. They got Coke machines on the thing, You know when I bought that GE stock? In 1996. You know what I've done with it? Nothing since. I don't even know how many shares it is. I mean, it just sits there. I'm a buy and hold guy.
Right.
But you got to be cognizant that they're going to accuse you, and people like that narrative that, if you're in Congress, you get rich off the people.
Yeah.
And Nancy Pelosi actually really did.
Yeah.
But you live and you learn. You don't trade. And I have legislation to prevent it. But you have to know that going in. Then
back to Hunter real quick. I just have one more question about him. He takes his laptop with all his emails to the pawn shop to be repaired. He has bribe money that was sent to his father's house in Wilmington. I saw that deal. He has a text that's asking for money, if I remember right, when I was reading it.
Yeah, that WhatsApp guy is shaking him down.
Right, and it says, my dad's with me. Doesn't he say that in the
my
text?
dad's here with me, and you're going to suffer the wrath of his vengeance.
So he says that and demands payment, and then we forgot about he leaves cocaine at the White House. We forgot about that part. Is Hunter Biden the dumbest criminal of all time?
Not right. Now, you have to understand something of where they were when they were grabbing with both hands from about 2000 and really ramped it up. It's been going on with his brother for decades. But in 2013, Hillary Clinton was going to be the candidate in 2016, and she was going to win, and she was going to serve 8 years.
Yeah, that's right.
So he was done.
Yeah.
He had never made any good money.
That's right.
Other than what he was making on the side illegally with this stuff. So this was the grab with both hands time.
Yeah.
And then all of a suddenly there's a shock, and Hillary loses in 2016. So they never thought they would face any scrutiny. That's why they were a little bit sloppier with the way in which they did things. And the WhatsApp message doesn't help that your son is high on crack. But this is the other thing that was very inconsistent was we reamed him on, you had no experience in the energy industry, you had no experience in finance, you never hired and fired anybody, you weren't a mogul. What in the world were people paying you tens of millions of dollars for? Oh, and I graduated from Georgetown. I graduated from Yale Law School. I was a highly sought after, very qualified. And then that's what he said in one breath. And the other breath, he'd say, oh, man, I sent that I was so high on crack then.
Oh, my gosh.
So which was it? And were you disclosing to these folks that were paying you millions of dollars that you were high on crack and you were throwing down with a bunch of hookers? You know, when you had alcohol and drug problems. So, no, you weren't. So you're duplicitous. Even his good guy persona for the 7 hours, it was duplicitous.
Yeah.
Have you been through the laptop?
No,
Or do you just
there
get it
were
on paper?
you get the documents, but
Yeah.
the physical laptop I've never seen.
I was just wondering what his screensaver was.
You can imagine. Now, to get back to Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's hardcore, man. She put like explicit photos of him with just certain things.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
At the Oversight Committee.
Oh my gosh.
But, he also said that he'd welcome public testimony, and he did. And he did the private deposition. And that's the process, by the way. We never have a high-profile witness just come into the committee.
Right.
You always depose them first because, and this is why, and this is inside baseball stuff, but we all only get 5 minutes. There's roughly 60 people in the committee. So when you're talking about, and the Democrats are going to throw softballs and cover and talk about Trump. So we would have in that scenario 150 minutes, 2.5 hours to ask questions. And they're very good at delay, uhs and ums and breath. And can you repeat the question and all that stuff, right? But when you're in a deposition, it could go on. It went on for 7 hours. It could go on for longer than that if need be. And then you look at the responses, and then you look at the data that you have in the research, and you find the inconsistencies, and then you can really hone in, and those 2.5 hours can be surgical.
Yeah.
That's why you do it that way. Now, he did the 7-hour part, but he didn't want to go public because nothing good was going to come from that.
Right.
And what if he gets angry? Or what if he, gets caught, and you've got 28 or 30 people up there looking to get you and get you crossed up. So.
Biggest issue that you see for our district? What's the biggest thing that you...
I don't think it's much different than the district as the country, as far as the biggest issues are going to be deficit spending and the debt. $35 trillion now. We've got to get our financial house in order. We've got to cut spending. The D.C. ruling class spends like drunken sailors, and we have to address the border. And we can secure the border. President Trump's going to address the border. And we've got to talk about entitlements. I mean, when you have Social Security going to go bankrupt in 11, 12 years, if you do nothing, which is what Joe Biden is because he's not going to be alive in 10 years. Right. I mean, seriously. I'm not wishing the guy any woe, but actuary tables will say he's not going to be around. We've got to address this. We have to start planning not just for the next election, but 10 and 20 and 50 years down the road with infrastructure, quite frankly, with water projects in the state of Texas. But financially, your dollar, if you had $100, I think it's like, 1975, that's $11 today.
Yeah, that's right.
Things like that, where I don't want us to have to go to austerity, but we're heading that way if we don't address it now. And what he has done is made everybody in this country about 30% poorer because of that wild inflation. When they spend like this, you got to understand the way Buttigieg he's got to spend like a couple trillion, like $1 trillion or something, right? Again, never sign the front of a paycheck. He gets to hand out this candy. Who they're handing it out to? Largely their people who will then donate some of it back to them. And they're the ones that get wildly rich while we all pay the price because we didn't get any of that, obviously.
Right.
And that makes every dollar that you had in your pocket or in the bank worth less. Yeah, it's scary.
It is very scary.
And Frisco, you live in Frisco.
Live in Frisco.
I think you're up to 63 high schools now in Frisco. Is that
boy?
What do you do about? And Rockwell has the same problem. The growth that we see.
Man,
coming
listen,
in.
I went round and round with that when I was in the state house with that school district with how they spend their money. I want them to be with education. It should be based on classroom performance.
Are your kids school age? How old are your kids?
Yeah, 17 or 14.
Okay.
It's
You've got a family picture, don't you?
Yeah, 17. Those boys are 17 and 15
17
now.
and 15.
Yeah.
Look at that.
And I am not that chunky anymore.
What's your wife's name?
Susan.
Yeah.
Susan.
Now, how'd y'all meet?
Great.
We met down in Dallas years and years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, Mac is the one with the glasses. He doesn't wear the glasses anymore. He's 15, and Thomas, the good-looking kid. They're both really good-looking.
I was going to say you're stepping into it there when you say the good-looking one.
Well, no, they're both super handsome. Is 17. He's a football player, and Mac is a football and basketball player.
Really? All right. Following in Dad's footsteps. All right. Very cool.
They're better than their dad. They're better people than their father. They're better looking than their father.
Well, then you did a good job.
Yeah, that's
what
what
we
you're
all
supposed
want.
to do. Yeah.
That's what we want.
Yeah. Man, we appreciate you joining.
Thank you
us.
for having me. I appreciate it. It was fun.
Yeah, I'm glad we hit on everything. Tell Sean we're sorry if we held you up too far. Was it Sean you're meeting?
Yeah, Sean Volk.
Okay, yeah. But we're blaming him that we had to hurry up. So it goes both ways. But thank you very much.
No, thanks guys for having me. I appreciate it.
We'll see y'all next time. Thank you.